More powerful gods than you have made me offers and asked, and I killed them just the same. Hello and welcome to a book review of a book I've been meaning to do for years. I never quite got around to it, but I have been kickstarted into it because this trilogy got rave reviews across the board. The third one is coming out next month, and I'm even going to a book signing for it. My first ever book signing is next month in York, and I can't wait. So, the book is Godkiller by Hannah Kaner. Now, before we even get into anything, I just want to talk about this artwork. It is just... It would pull me if it was sat on the shelf, just like that. I would be drawn to it like a bee to honey. Because it is absolutely beautiful. And the spread edges are gorgeous. They don't wrap around, but they are lovely. And the naked hardcover, just wowzers. Just wowzers. Look at the character art, it's gorgeous. No internal artwork, but it is foiled and it is signed by the author on there. This is the Illumicrate version, and it has the same artwork there on the back. And it's a debut book. For a debut book, this blew my mind. But before we even get there, let's read what the blurb's about. You are not welcome here, Godkiller. Kissen's family were killed by zealots of a fire god. Now she makes a living killing gods and enjoys it. That is until she finds a god she cannot kill. Skedi, a god of white lies, has somehow bound himself to a young noble, and they are both on the run from unknown assassins. Joined by a disillusioned knight on a secret quest, they must travel to the ruined city of Blenraden, where the last of the wild gods reside, to each beg a favour. Pursued by demons and in the midst of burgeoning civil war, they will all face a reckoning. Something is rotting at the heart of the kingdom, and only they can be the ones to stop it. I'm in so deep. This kicks off with a prologue chapter, and it is when Kissen is a child, and it is probably the darkest chapter in the whole book, because it's horrific, and it really sets the tone for the landscape of the politicalness, the gods, the people that worship them. Everything that Kissen will become is set in this prologue chapter. The descriptions of what happens is very brutal, and it really lets the reader know why Kissen started on this journey from a family that is connected to the sea god, of why she then turns away from all of it and becomes a killer of gods. But then again, your entire family, all your brothers, sisters, parents, being set up by your neighbours that you've known for your whole life, you've played games with them, you've grew up with them, and you and your entire family is set up as a human sacrifice to this new powerful fire goddess. Yeah, it will kind of turn you into a bit of a killer. Not surprised. Now, this is a very short book. It is only, it is 288 pages. So just over novella size by about half. But it is very, very thin. The second one's not this thin, it's a bit thicker. So let's talk a bit about the main characters, because we do get the four main characters being Kissen, Elagast, Inara and Skedi, and we do get their points of view in all the different chapters. So let's talk a bit about what the characters are, or what my interpretation of what the characters are like. So because we start with Kissen, and she is our main character of our main character group, she is strong, fierce, and completely rage-filled. Now, she is not a character without fault or flaws. She has many of them. But rather than trying to explain them away or blame her tortured past for the way that she is today, she just straight up owns it. And she really leans into owning it no matter the consequences. So she will always just tell the truth. Blunt, brutal honesty. And where you would tell, say, little white lies to get out of a situation, she just straight down the line, it is what it is, deal with it. Or she'll kill you. And she really doesn't care what other people think. Other people know that she doesn't care. She just doesn't give a shit. People just have to deal with that. And she has made a name for herself as this Godkiller across the continent. And people know her just by the sight of her. And they're scared of her because a person that would have to go up against this supernatural god being with all the power and then kill them just by being a mere mortal. Not only a mere mortal, but she lost her leg in the attempt at human sacrifice. So she does have a prosthetic leg. So she's disabled, but she still goes after these all-powerful beings with all the power, and she still comes out on top. So yeah, she is known throughout the continent, and she is feared and treated with suspicion because worshipping gods is outlawed. So we will move on to our next character, which is Elogast. He is a very strong male character, completely tormented by his past traumatic events. Aren't they all? Now, he is best friends with Prince Aaron. They grew up together, they trained together, they became soldiers together, they dealt with their families together, which are unharmonious to say the least. And when the God War exploded, which happens before the events of this book, Elogast was Prince Aaron's general of his army. They fought the war together and they lost so many people, so many family members, so traumatic. And just when they thought that it wasn't, that everything was lost, they won side by side together. Now, after the war ended, the reason that Elogast is so tormented by past traumatic events is because once they'd won this war and Aaron became king, he left him and said, I can't serve you anymore because I don't agree with the laws that you're bringing in, considering what we did to win. These laws make what we did to win unlawful and a killable offence. It's downright hypocrisy, and he just couldn't stand to see it. So he left, thinking that these laws were hypocritical at best and downright dangerous at worst. And we find him in a bakery. He has transformed himself into a baker. He likes baking bread. It really, calms his mind. It's his just let loose and just forget about everything. Now, one of our other characters is Inara, and she is a child, a noble child, but she's about, I want to say, between 9, 12ish. She's not a teenager yet, and she has had a very sheltered upbringing. So sheltered, in fact, that the manor house that is her family seat, the village that's connected to the manor house, doesn't even know she's alive. Doesn't even know she exists. That is how sheltered her upbringing has been. And she goes from being this sheltered child to having to be strong because of events that we're there for. So we are with her in real time as we witness her character growth across this book. From being a sheltered child to, quite frankly, holding her own. Now, she is mind-connected to this god of white lies, Skediseth. As I kept calling him Skediseth. But neither of them know how it happened, why it happened, because they can't really remember. Those whole events are extremely fuzzy and non-existent. and they don't know how to unconnect themselves. And any time that they get far apart from each other, it causes them physical agonizing pain. So they can't be away from each other. It just can't snap because of distance. It will kill them. Both of them. Now, she can be a little bit annoying because she's a child. But all in all, I thought she was a very good character. Now then we get Skediseth, and it is Skediseth that is on the spread edges, this little shape of a rabbit with wings and antlers. So he's there on the back. Because this character on the front, this is the war god, the main god that Aaron and Elagast fought in the God War previous to this book. Now, Skedi doesn't remember anything. He doesn't remember anything of his past. He doesn't remember how he came to be, because gods need shrines and prayers to come into existence, and nobody knew who he was. Except now Inara, but that's only because they're mind moulded together. And he doesn't remember a thing before mind moulding to Inara. He doesn't know. It really just, his character starts from the moment he's in contact with her. Anything before that is just a complete blank. Like I said, he is a god of white lies. He's not all-powerful. He is probably quite a minor one in this. But he has all the flaws of the gods that Kissen, especially, has come to loathe, and that is partly why she's a Godkiller in the first place. So they frequently argue, and Kissen doesn't trust him one little bit, especially when he's connected to Inara. She just doesn't trust him. She really keeps tabs on him, and he hates it. So that is our dynamic at the beginning of the book. I did like every single character. Every single character is just really well written. They're not perfect. They each have different flaws, and when they come into contact with each other, like stone rubbing on stone, it causes some sparks. Now, I did really, really like this book. I gave it 4 stars because I was invested. I am still invested. The second one's on my shelf up there. It's my next read after reading the one for the Discord read along for the Butterfly Book Club, which is Living Legend, and that is a thick thing. So the second one is on my to-do list, but giving it 4 stars and this glowing review does not mean that I didn't have some criticism for it, because I do. Now, I don't know who proofread this or whether it is just the Illumicrate copy, but there are quite a few grammatical errors in it. The way sentences flow, I'm just going to check that the author's English, because if she's Northumbrian, she's northern, so there's no excuse for bad grammar. And there's spelling mistakes as well. Not just like a one-off that you can forgive, but it does happen quite a lot, and it did, make me take a step back, like, really? Because I just can't move on from that, because I do some proofreading for my work on occasion, and I can't move past it. Once it's registered, I've seen it, it's there. And there's no reason for it, because it's published, it's not a self-published novel, it's gone through a publishing house and they must have missed it. And it was things like, so for example, because I wrote an example down, Kissen wasn't going to let him stupid that easily. Which, yeah, you can do, it kind of works, but in the context of everything else that is in here, it just flashes that it doesn't fit. It should have been a proper sentence, because that is not somebody saying something, that is something that is just descriptive in a paragraph. And it happens more than a few. In my opinion, it just didn't need to happen. And on that note, and this seems like such a little thing to be a criticism in the first place, but the word said is so overused in this. There are different ways of saying that somebody spoke. So you can ask something, you whisper, you softly say. But I've written a page, an example page. So let's see, where are we? So this is an example. This paragraph doesn't have any spoilers. I know it's near the end, but it's the one that I picked out first. It does happen a lot through here, but it's the one that really homed in on it. If you lied to him, though, said Skedi, if he has a strong connection with the god, perhaps she was with him. Perhaps she told him you were lying. I would have seen her, said Elo uncertainly. You didn't see me, said Skedi. Oh, for fuck's sake, said Kissen. Elo looked at the sky and then turned down at his sword before his eyes met hers, dark and serious. Focused again. Aaron is not well, he said. So it's said Skedi, said Elo, said Skedi, said Kissen. He said. Said. There are other words in the English language to use. And it's such a little criticism, but it is throughout the book. It's like she didn't know any other words to use. She does use other words, but it is very rare. He said, she said, he said, she said, he said, he asked. So, said, just over and over and over again. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. It's just, it started to annoy me by the end. And it's only just under 300 pages, but it did start to annoy me. Now, another thing, so these four, the whole reason that they are grouped together is because they want to get to this city of the old wild gods, Blenraden, which was where the God War finished. And it lies in ruin, and people go on pilgrimages there, even though worshipping gods is outlawed. So they individually sign up to this pilgrim train to get them in safety where they need to go. We spend quite a bit of time with this pilgrim train. We get to know all the different characters. But by the end of the book, and there's going to be a spoiler here, so click to this time up here. By the end of the book, the only two pilgrims are left are Batseda and Beric. And they were travelling to Blenraden to ask a god to make someone fertile or infertile. And now all the pilgrims, because we've got to know them all, they all have different reasons for wanting to go to this place to ask a god a favour. And they're not like little things. These are like end of life kind of stuff. And when we get to the end, the only two that actually turn up are Beric and Batseda, and the rest of them turned back. We don't get to know why. We just got to know these characters, and their motives were so powerfully written of why they're having to go to this place, defying the laws of the land, might I add. And they just turn back. It's never properly explained, and it should have been. And it feels like those two characters were shoehorned in at the end because near the end, the main characters needed something, and they were just shoehorned in to provide it. It seemed just lazy, but it is a debut, but come on, man. Now, one of the things I did like, apart from the fact that I couldn't put it down, is Skedi is a god. It's established that Kissen doesn't trust him. For good reason, because gods are not to be trusted with the power that they can wield over people. And because he is mind connected to Inara, it heightens that risk and danger. And there's a few pages, if you want, there's going to be spoilers. There is going to be spoilers. This is your spoiler warning. Spoilers, spoilers, spoilers. You've been warned. If you hear it now, it's not my problem. But there's a point in the middle of the book when they're on their own. It's just the four of them. And because Skedi, things aren't really going his way because he is frightened of Kissen because she'd kill him. If he wasn't connected to Inara, she'd have killed him already because he's a god. And he is frightened of that happening, and because he feels Inara being not exactly turned away from him, but having a mind of her own, growing up and realising that there is a world around her, that her little bubble that has just been her and him is just expanding now. He gets very defensive, very scared, and in doing so, he knowingly takes over Inara completely, possesses her mind and forces her subconscious down where he can't hear her. It was a very uncomfortable few pages when that happened, because you're like, no. But I think it was written on purpose to be uncomfortable, because throughout, on the lead up to that, yes, he's a god. He's a god of white lies. So, that's not so bad. Is this cute little rabbit that fits in her pocket? You know, it's got wings and antlers, and it's cute, and it can nuzzle up to you and cuddle you, and they can talk telepathically. He's her best friend. Her only friend, because of course nobody else knows she exists. And we as a reader have got comfortable at that point, thinking, oh, he's just a cute little bunny. Yeah, he's a god, but he's not as bad as, they're not so bad. He could be one of the good ones. And to be jolted out of that because of what he does and continues to do, it's very graphic what he tries to do to her mind and what events he sets in motion. That this is not just a cute, cuddly creature. This is a god with a god's power and a god's influence and selfishness. Everything that Kissen hates, loathes, and wants to wipe from the continent. The whole reason, it solidifies the whole reason why Godkillers like Kissen exist in the first place, and why they're in such high demand for their services. That whole section was just phenomenally written. Another thing that I really, really liked, and one of the main reasons why I couldn't put it down, is the whole concept of a world that has gods and goddesses of every variety in it, interacting as they do with mortals and influencing events, is just so interesting to me. It's one of the reasons why I like Greek mythology so much, because not only is it a fun to read, but it also describes how the human thought process is, how selfish it can be. So not only in this have you got gods and goddesses of every variety, you've got an uprising, civil war, rebelling against such gods and goddesses, the king outlawing any worship of any god at all on pain of death. People are beaten in the streets. It's the whole politics, the whole background events is just very, very interesting, and it really keeps it going. It keeps that momentum up. And we get to know that the power of the gods directly corresponds to how many shrines they have, how many people pray to these shrines, and how big the shrines are. So all of this makes Kissen's job extremely interesting, because she is a god killer, and to kill the god you need to seek out the shrine and the people worshipping them, or creatures. Sometimes they're just creatures, sometimes they're demonic entities. And it makes the connection that Inara and Skedi have so intriguing, because you don't know why it's happened, you don't know where it's going. It hooked me. It hooked me from the beginning. Human child sacrifice, I'm there. So, like I said, this is the first book in the trilogy, and after the explosive and brutal events of that prologue, where of course, there was human sacrifice. Events do take a while to kick into high gear again, which happens at the end. And, of course, that sets up the next book in the series, Sunbringer, beautifully. But in between those two high-octane events, you have a journey. And it's not really like a journey. Wow. You are on the road. You are journey, literally. It is a literal journey. You are on the road for 80% of this book, just walking. And this serves as a long introduction to each of our main characters. Because you're not going to info dump right at the beginning. Because this is a trilogy, she can take her time. This isn't a single book that once written was thought, oh, I can turn it into a trilogy. This was a trilogy from concept, so she knew she could take her time with this. And she does take her time with this. And it can be a bit boring. I didn't find it boring, because you really get to know the ins and outs of these four main characters that you're going to spend a hell of a lot of time with going forward. So I would recommend this book to anybody who likes fantasy, anybody who likes journeying. If you like mythology, this is a great one. I love mythology. I was hooked. Now we do get onto a bit of spoilers, so if you don't want spoilers again, this will be the end of the video for you, unless you want to hear the outro. But my predictions for book 2, I haven't read it yet. So, my predictions after reading this book is, I don't think Skedi is a minor god. I think he has been, for want of a better word, spellbound. So his powers have been cursed down. I'm not saying the right words, but it's been dampened and his memory has been wiped. So whatever kind of god he was, it was probably a big one and probably a major player for this to happen. And he's getting vague flashbacks of his life before Inara, but they are 2 at the most. I can only remember 1. So I think he was bigger. I think he was more influential in the God War that happens before this book. I think there's something there that is going to come out eventually. And Inara, because of what she displays in this book, she's not a normal child. That's for damn sure. But I think, because there's no mention of her father, there is just a mention of her mother, and her mother gets killed at the beginning. I think she might be kind of a demigod, so like, her mother might have asked a god, I want to have a child, or she slept with one of them, you never know, and out came Inara. Which is why she was probably able to be, or susceptible to be mind melded with a god. So those are my predictions for book 2. Tell me what you think down in the comments below if you've read this one, if you're aiming to read this one. Subscribe to my channel and you'll find my review of the second one probably coming in about a month's time, because the next one is out, I think it's on the 18th of March, something like that. It's soon. But don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, do the holy trinity of YouTube, and keep reading.
Lonely shadows dance with glee, eyes of amber, soul set free. Finds they weave a tale so grand, woven by a whispering hand. Set the light, embrace the night, dark stars journey shining bright. Through the trials, through the pain, love and light shall still remain.